Meseret Warner, today's guest, is the founder and managing director of Ignite Investment, an investment crowdfunding portal serving Ethiopia by drawing on the Ethiopian diaspora to support entrepreneurs based in the country. Meseret will share insights about her work and her superpower. I'm your host, Devin Thorpe. Welcome to the Superpowers for Good show, where we empower you. Hello, Meseret. It's so nice to connect with you. Thank you so much for taking the time to visit with me and our audience today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Well, you're doing some amazing work there in Ethiopia, and you're joining us today from Ethiopia, I should note. I appreciate you being there. It's getting late in the evening as we record this, so I appreciate you making time and making the place for this on a busy day. But tell us a little bit about Ignite Investment, the investment crowdfunding site you're creating for Ethiopian entrepreneurs and the diaspora of Ethiopians around the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a diaspora myself. I went back pretty much almost 10 years now. So the market is like really critical lack of access to finance. The Ethiopian and mostly the African access to finance is collateralized debt financing. So if you do not have immobile assets, pretty much SMEs, small, medium enterprises and startups do not have. So that means they are just completely excluded from access to financing. So we try to look into what type of alternative financing there could be for those types of, which is a majority of the businesses in the country. And of course, even in developed countries, right? Small, medium enterprises are the bulk of jobs are created by those companies. So we try to see first trying to bring in impact investors to try to invest in the African market, the emerging Africa, Ethiopia market. But the deal flow is pretty much non-existent. 10% deals happen in Ethiopia, mostly because venture capital, especially private equity, is looking for big investment, like 10 million and above and things like that. And of course, startups and small businesses are looking less than $1 million, right? So this is when start thinking about how we can actually look into where big capital is coming to Ethiopia. And Africa in general, $80 billion comes to the continent every single year as remittances from the diaspora. Here in Ethiopia, just I think a year ago, $5 billion came in as remittances. And we say that even a very small percentage of that, 5% of 80 billion is close to what, $4 billion. That going to a productive sector of the economy, financing these businesses would be a great thing. So we start creating Ignite Investment, try to prove the concept, looking and working with project, even proving the concept, working on project and mobilizing millions of dollars from hundreds of Ethiopian diaspora without even the platform. And then, of course, the work of how does the technicality of crowdfunding works in a country where there is no regulatory framework for equity crowd investment. So we are now set up in the US as a Delaware C Corp, where we are mobilizing the investors. A lot of high net worth Ethiopian diaspora live in the US, especially even in Washington, D.C. There are estimated 300,000 alone in just Washington, D.C.
Wow.
So, yeah, so crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
The bulk of Ethiopian diaspora is in Washington, D.C. I think there has been some research done for immigrants from Africa, even Ethiopia, and that's even the low end of the estimate. So I heard, could be wrong, Ethiopians in Washington, D.C. are the third language spoken there from English, Spanish, and Ethiopian. So
wow.
that tells you the magnitude of the capital. And how we can get that. And of course, the majority of the money is going to be remittances because family needs, healthcare support, food and other things, education. But we also know that from research that Ethiopian diaspora actually invest in, big government projects like the dam, the Renaissance Dam, or other infrastructure, or even charities. So it is a matter of giving them a seamless, trustworthy mechanism where they can actually invest and see impact. That's the whole point of crowdfunding, right? It's impact. It's not just looking for a return, but making an impact. And that's why we try to set up a system where actually they can trust the system. We have to earn the trust. It's not given, right? So that's why we set it up in Delaware C Corp, so that they know that it's regulated. It's not, existing somewhere without being oversight. And also here in Ethiopia, we work with the Ethiopian regulation, using the Ethiopian equity investment mechanism, where after we mobilize it in the US, we use the Ethiopian law. And we are also working the Ethiopian, the new capital markets authority that's working on actually launching the Ethiopian capital market, where equity crowd investment is one of them. Actually, they just released the draft directives just a week ago, I think. And it's out for public comment. So hopefully that will make our life much easier, but that's how we are trying to do with Ignite Investment at the moment.
Yeah, well, it's already, you've got some great projects up on the website that are raising money. There's one called Green Scene, that is Green Scene Energy, providing affordable solar powered on a pay-as-you-go basis to make it affordable for folks. There's another one that's providing home-based healthcare services that just seems so critical in a place where there's not quite enough healthcare for a lot of people. And so how are the projects doing? Are they successfully raising some money now?
Yeah, we just got them on, right? So surprisingly, actually, we are getting amazing response. Even for myself, I have been surprised. We do have advisory board where that's helping us mobilize the investors. And I was telling them, actually, we work on it for years, and of course, we're expecting to try to start making traction. But I was really pleasantly surprised. Like the first week we launched, there was I think 32 signups and 12 investors from 6 different countries. And these are investors that we didn't actually email solicit or anything like that, even though we actually beforehand reached out, I think 35 Ethiopian diaspora and other impact investors who made a commitment, soft commitment of almost $500,000. And it wasn't any one of them. So these were people just walking into the platform and looking into it and signing up, and even in putting in some money, as you can see in one of them, in a couple of them already. So that to me is how much demand there is out there. It's not only from the fundraisers' perspective, but also from the investors' perspective. They really wanted to come into Ethiopia. It's not just the diaspora that want to help their home country and their countrymen and women, but also impact investors. The point is there isn't easy way to understand, a country that you probably haven't heard before. And if you have heard before, it's always the challenges we hear about. So for us, it has been really a great surprise. But also, I think that we work so hard to make the companies investable, because I think coming into the Ethiopian market, and Ethiopia is still an infant country in private sector development, the opportunities like boundless, really amazing. But still private sector is young, so we need to show them, even when they are amazing investment opportunity, they probably needed support to, to be able to fundraise. It's not like, we funder where you are saying, okay, well, you are a funder, come with your compiled documents, your own network or things like that. So we have a long way to go, but they are doing amazing so far. And also we're just putting only 3 to test the water, because we are just starting, even though we did on the background before the technology, a lot of work behind the scene. Still, there are many companies that will be coming in. But also I think the most important thing for us is building that trust from the company's perspective, and also making it seamless. So if you really want to go into one of the companies and want to invest in that, you would be able to get any due diligence papers. We can link you with the founders. You can directly talk to them so that you can get the feel for those companies, right? Building that community, that relationship, that trustworthiness. That to me is the most important part, to build a solid background, a solid foundation where the opportunities like boundless, where we can go huge and forward. But one thing I would be remiss if I don't mention is that in terms of impact, I fully like women economic empowerment. I have been in that space. So 65% of our fundraisers are women. And as you can see on the platform, 2 out of the 3 are women. And also, like you say, Green Scene, who is doing solar energy distribution to the part of the Ethiopia where they do not have access to electricity to do even their homework, or clinics and others. So we really go out to make sure these are impactful, great businesses. It's not just like, oh, come and help this, as we usually hear it, what most people do in Africa, but these are amazing business opportunities that are making impact, solving huge challenges.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Well, this is really quite an accomplishment, Meseret. You have done something that is supremely important. And of course, we want to see it succeed tremendously, but already just its creation, you've aggregated capital, you've got backing, you're building something that really could have dramatic impact. I congratulate you on that. What do you see as your superpower?
It is a huge question, right? There are 2 things I would say for that. That one of it is to be really part of the people, the movement, whatever that might be, that moves the needle forward in getting Africa to be able to actually reach its potential, right? It really breaks my heart. And one side of it is, I was a kid, Ethiopia is known for getting aid, humanitarian assistance, and we still are aid dependent, which we shouldn't be, because there are amazing opportunities. And I see a lot of Africans that are solving huge challenges. Like I said, the women Green Scene that's raising capital is already in many Ethiopian regions. 40% of Ethiopians are off-grid, and she is reaching areas where she is empowering those people. It's not just her. So helping her grow her businesses, grow that, to me, is one of the way we can solve our own challenges, our own economic progress, and the potential. And when I look at these young Africans solving these problems, is where I am energized every day, even when we have huge challenges in African entrepreneurship. There is no denying that. We do not have all the infrastructure. We do not have all the electricity. We do not have the ease of doing business. There's no question about that. But at the same time, you look at how these young Africans are amazingly creating these businesses. I'm pretty sure you must have heard Flutter Wave, for example, based in Nigeria, becoming one of the most valued African company at $3 billion, is having financial inclusion to Africans that do not even have bank account and now can borrow or buy things and get involved in e-commerce. Or in Ethiopia, you look at Soul Rebel Bethlehem, who is actually doing amazing work, globally known now, having hundreds of shops throughout the globe, producing shoe products out of recycled tires. These are amazing entrepreneurs. And that, to me, is how we're going to make Africa determine its own destination, solving the health problems, solving the food crisis, solving the aid dependency, all those things. So for me is, I was a refugee young person, and now I'm looking at it and I'm saying, why are we seeing this crisis over and over? And I wanted to be part of that, who tries at least to make progress in that space. And I really do believe that it's not going to be through aid. It's not going to be through different things. It's going to be through helping and entrepreneurship, investment in trade. And I just want to be in that space, really.
So I just want to make sure I'm understanding what you see as your superpower. But I think you're saying it's the way you are energized. It's your passion for entrepreneurship, for the people of Ethiopia, for seeing them become not dependent on aid, to become economically independent. Am I hearing you correctly?
Absolutely. I think
Okay.
absolutely. I think Ethiopians and Africans in general do have the resources, do have the intelligence, do have the acumen. If we just get the resources, the financing, and like any other parts of the world where, in the US, where you have SBA, the Small Business, Administration, and others, that is supporting and empowering that entrepreneurship, that would take their own destination. I just don't want another African or Ethiopian trying to leave the country, trying to find another economic, opportunity, which is fine as well. But at least we can also create our own economic opportunity. And I just want to be part of that, who creates those opportunities, creating and thinking about how do we solve these challenges.
As you look back over what you've accomplished in your life and career, and you mentioned that you started life as a young person as a refugee, I think, so you've accomplished a lot, which is impressive. But tell us a little bit about perhaps how you have employed that superpower, that passion, to accomplish something you're proud of. Can you think of an example to share with us?
I would say, to me, is not to be one of the things I would say, and why I'm here today is really being resourceful, really not giving up on anything. So I was in my teens, separated from my family, being in a refugee camp in Kenya. And I can go on and on, all the challenges refugees go through, which can be another big show on its own. But, I was also one of the very lucky ones, ended up in Canada, got scholarship to start even my education and university. But part of the success, I feel like every part of the challenge I get into is really trying to be resourceful no matter what and not giving up. I was at a refugee camp. I didn't have, someone sponsoring me, and I knew that, but just keep on trying whatever was around. So when I applied for, student sponsorship program, I have no idea I would be picked, one of just the 4 people, or 7, I think, throughout that East Africa region, or only 4 of Ethiopians, or even finishing my school, didn't have an advisor what to study, what to do, and just being resourceful and asking anyone who may be able to provide that, or even having challenges after that, and even deciding coming back and seeing this. And I said, starting to this business, and I have no idea where to start, how I'm going to solve this regulation, what I'm going to do. But just because I really learned that resilience and that resourcefulness, I just keep on asking. I met you today, and tomorrow I may ask you, can you help with how the CF regulation works?
Yeah.
If I have a question,
and I think I can help you with that. I think I can. I'm the president of the Crowdfunding Professional Association, so I better be able to help you with that. As you think about your passion, your superpower, and that resourcefulness that you talked about, how would you coach someone to develop that strength? I know it seems like it's intrinsic or it's personal, but at the same time, lots of people would recognize that they want to accomplish great things, but they may not feel that same passion. Is there some way you can coach them to find it, to discover it?
I think one of the things I do research, no matter how little the question is. Not really big research, but if I don't know a word you are asking me tomorrow, I would just go. And especially nowadays, it is really readily available, whether it's YouTube or whether, you have to make sure, double check that the internet is full of also misinformation. But I think, instead of saying, I cannot do this, I cannot do that, how about I try this? How about I try that? I know it's cliche to say those things, but it is very true. Sometimes you keep on trying, and then, and of course, a little bit of luck sometimes helps. But I think in the process of keep on trying anything, keep on, whether if you're going to go to a better career path, the way to go is learning more skills in the field that you want to be, right? When I started the crowdfunding, for example, in Ignite Investment, I chartered out what are the things I need to do. And probably 80% of the things weren't something I knew already. So I'm like, okay, who do I ask? What do I know in my network who knew this part of the regulation, or this part of the investment club, or this was part of the diaspora network, or can I tap into the Ethiopian embassy, or can I tap into the diaspora research center? All those things, most of them may not pan out, but you would be surprised. I have always been surprised how much actually surprisingly you can pick up, and you're like, oh, I didn't know that. It is really quite surprising how much we learn, and it's very important. For example, I was preparing for this show, right? I have to tell you. Mm-hmm. So I was talking to a good friend of mine who is also our advisory board, who really is a good person. And I was asking, and then he said, by the way, he was driving from LA and then listening to a podcast, not yours, but a podcast. And then he was listening to Silicon Valley unicorns, and now they are venture investors. And some of them were saying, oh, if I knew that a fundraiser would say, can you write a check of $25,000? And then he said, no, I cannot afford that. And then he let it go. But if he said, how about 5? And he said for a startup, that would have made a huge difference. And even for him, that company became a unicorn. That 5,000 probably have turned, a return of millions, right? So to me, it's like, oh my God, I gotta mention that for our crowdfunding, that people may say, or maybe somebody may listen to this podcast and say, wow, Africa, I don't know what that is. What is Ethiopia? I don't know what that is. But they can say, I cannot write 25,000 check, or I cannot invest in that one. But they can say, look, I can test the waters by putting $1,000 or $500. That's our minimum. And they would be surprised how much impact they would get, right? So for me, it's like finding that opportunity to learn every day and see how that can actually make a very small step forward and gives you energy, right? And there are days I keep on pulling my hair and say, what am I doing here? But then, I get a small win and then I say, yeah, this is why I'm doing it, Just celebrate the small wins.
Yeah. That's great. That's great. Well, Meseret, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. I appreciate all of your wisdom and insights. Before we wrap up, may I ask you just to tell people how they can learn more about Ignite Investment and how they can connect with you either by email or social media or phone, whatever you want them to do to connect with you, please tell them.
Yeah, I am everywhere. Honestly, I try to have all the social media. So I do have Meseret or Messi on Twitter. We do have the website, igniteinvestment.com, and there is a contact us. They can send that info. There is also even a phone number there. I am mostly, easiest way to do is just writing my name on LinkedIn, that I am there too. One of the things I would be remiss if I didn't mention is that it would be amazing for anyone who can think of a way to help. It doesn't have to be necessarily volunteering. It doesn't have to be necessarily even investing the $500, but we also link our startups with know-how. Somebody can be an advisor, a mentor, or anything that can actually move a needle in helping these companies grow, right, and become employers and become the next corporations of Africa, Ethiopia, and also philanthropy. I know that you do talk to a lot of philanthropy, for example, that they can co-invest, right? If they invest, for example, in one of those three companies, not a lot of money, 1,000, that encourages other private investors, and they would say, wow, if this organization, if this philanthropy is getting in, I may as well get in and have an impact. So those things would make a huge difference. You may think it's so small, but it really makes a huge difference in catalyzing a lot of activities, not just capital by itself.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, again, Meseret, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. We wish you every success with Ignite Investment for Ethiopia. This is so exciting. We want to see you succeed and hope you will.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you everyone for listening.
All righty. Let's do some good. Thank you for tuning in to the Superpowers for Good show. Twice each week, we host changemakers who share their impact, insights, and superpowers. Don't miss another episode. Subscribe today at superpowersforgood.com. That's superpowers, good.com. Be super empowered. Get your copy of the book, Superpowers for Good, as an ebook, audiobook, paperback, or hardcover edition via your favorite online retailer. Interested in having me speak to your company, organization, or association? Visit devinthorpe.com. Then let's talk. Now, keep using your superpowers for good. Together, we can reverse climate change, improve global health, and eradicate poverty.